Good afternoon and greetings. I'm Mark's wife, Nancy, and on behalf of all our family, thank you for joining us today to celebrate the life of Mark William Menzies McCauley. Many of you are joining us virtually from points near and far. To all the family, friends, and colleagues of Mark taking part today, welcome, bienvenue. We are in the Second Wind Music Center, an old church that was purchased by our friends Peter and Ann and transformed into this beautiful space. It's a favorite place of Mark's, where we have taken in many concerts and musical performances, and there could be no more fitting place to gather today than here. Mark loved music and all genres. He fully admitted that he was not musical, couldn't follow the beat, and he never enjoyed being asked to stand and sing together. He said that he knew many others felt that way too. So with that in mind, we have the very talented Catherine Brennan, Jamie Hunter, Ray Haynes, and Peter McLaughlin, who will take care of that for us, playing songs that in some way connect to Mark's life. We will weave those songs in between some stories and reflections by friends and family. As we will hear, one of Mark's great passions was working for McCain Foods for more than 30 years. He traveled the world, focused on business, and developed lasting friendships with his many colleagues. He was most grateful to McCain for their constant support throughout his career, which allowed him to work up until 2 weeks ago. Mark was fortunate to be cared for by so many wonderful individuals working in healthcare. We extend our sincere thanks to them all, with deep appreciation for the years of care provided by his cardiologist, Dr. David Buick, and his family physician, Dr. Carter Kennedy. Mark loved life and lived it to the fullest. He was a passionate chef and grill master, grinding and blending his own spices, cooking for friends and family, and always seeking new dining experiences. He enjoyed woodworking, building furniture for our children, doing construction and carpentry work at home and at the cottage. Most recently, he took up carving birds. He was a voracious reader and movie lover, a New York Times crossword and jigsaw puzzle aficionado, a sports enthusiast, and a fan of the Montreal Canadiens. He was a fashionista and owned many pairs of glasses to match his wardrobe. Mark enjoyed the great outdoors, skiing, cycling, canoe trips on the Tobic, hiking, swimming, and spending time at the cottage at Lac des Neiges. He loved to travel and took the scenic route whenever possible. He was well-versed in world news and politics and loved to engage in debate. As one friend said, he was always insightful, knowledgeable, and with a keen interest and power of observation. But more than anything, Mark loved the people in his life. He told me on our first date how much he loved his parents, Nancy and Martin. Born in Ireland, Mark and his family moved to Perth Andover, New Brunswick when he was 3. He grew up close to his siblings, Neil and Kim, in a community that showered the family with love and whom they loved back. Mark's family grew to include Kim's husband, Warren, and children Bailey and Kieran, Neil's wife, Anne, and their son, Torin. And Mark deeply loved his extended family of aunts, uncles, and cousins. After the loss of Mark's mom, we were happy to welcome Marilyn into the family when she married Martin. In the late 1970s, Mark headed off to Dalhousie University in Halifax for his Bachelor's of Science degree. There, he would become fast and furious friends with a wonderful group of people, many with whom we would connect in the years to follow. In 1984, Mark and I met in Montreal as sales rep for McCain Foods. We fell in love and married 2 years later. Our families grew together to include my parents, Jim and Eleanor, my brother Jamie, his wife Marina, and kids Sebastian, Benita, and Danny, And my sister Anita, husband Brian, kids Morrissey, Everett, and Laurier. Mark greatly enjoyed my extended family as well. I think a robust discussion Mark had with my aunt about American politics might have clinched our relationship. Mark also greatly enjoyed my family's cottage in Shawinigan, Quebec, where we forged a beautiful friendship with our neighbors on Lac des Neiges. Our time in Montreal was wonderful, connecting with friends through work and play. In 1992, Mark and I moved to Florenceville, Bristol, when he was transferred to the marketing department of McCain Foods. And the friendships that he enjoyed through work here grew as he traveled the world for McCain. And as a community, we could not have landed in a better place. Mark loved living here, and the friendships made here have known no bounds. No love, however, could surpass the love Mark had for our children, Brendan and Lindsay. He was immensely proud of you for being the loving, kind, and caring individuals who you are, that you love and share Dad's many interests, that you are following your passions in your careers, Brendan in geology, Lindsay in design, that you have a deep love of family, and you have Michelle and Cam in your lives who share your interests and passions. You have learned from the Master how to live life to the fullest. Turn it over to Jamie now. In 2 seconds.
Thank you so much, Nancy. So this first song is a memory from Lac des Neiges, and it's titled Night Swimming, and it was written by R.E.M. Night swimming deserves a quiet night. The photograph on the dashboard, taken years ago. Turn around backwards so the windshield shows. Every street light reveals a picture in reverse. Still, it's so much clearer. I forgot my shirt at the water's edge. The moon is low tonight. Night swimming deserves a quiet night. I'm not sure all these people understand. It's not like years ago, the fear of getting caught, of recklessness in water. They cannot see me naked. These things, they go away, replaced by everyday night swimming, remembering that night. September's coming soon. I'm pining for the moon. And what if there were two, side by side in orbit around the fairest sun? That bright, tight, forever drum cannot describe night swimming. You thought I knew you. You I cannot judge. You I thought you knew me. This one's laughing quietly underneath my breath. Night swimming. The photograph reflects every street light, a reminder. Night swimming deserves there's a quiet night.
Never been on stage before. Hi, I'm Kim, Mark's sister. This is my brother Neil and my husband Warren, Mark's brother-in-law. We are each here to share a few reflections to celebrate Mark's life. And after we share our own reflection, and there might be some repetition in there, we'd like to give you a list of Mark's excellent life lessons.
I'd like to thank everyone, Mark's friends and family, for being here to reflect on Mark, and not just on the good stuff. He wouldn't want that. No matter how much you know this day is coming, you're never really prepared for it. We never wished to see it. We wished for much longer for Mark, much longer for all of us. I can't imagine that Mark was any different as a father, husband, friend, or an employee than he was his brother. Fiercely loyal, highly protective, brutally competitive, and no problem being bluntly critical. As boys, we fought frequently, as brothers will. Usually I knew before the fight started how it was going to end. Because Mark wasn't above a low blow or anything else to make sure he got the win. But you had to fight anyway. He hated to lose, just like our mom. That shared trait is probably what kept him ticking and fighting way past when the Energizer Bunny would have run out of juice. He didn't change from when we were growing up skiing at Mars Hill. And somehow if I skied 20 runs, he'd come out and he would have skied 21 or 25, even though we skied every single run together. And just a few years ago, after a long stay in St. John Hospital, we were out skiing at Red Mountain. And I think I missed the first day at Silver Star or whatever, and then joined them for Red Mountain. And when I got to Red Mountain, I decided I hadn't seen him, so I'd ski the day with him. So after the day skiing, and again, you're being a bit protective. You know, he'd been in the spring, and at the end of the day, he made the remark. He said that thought I'd lost a lot of speed that day, and I'd slowed down quite a bit. That I need to really push it a little bit harder. Charity was really something that Mark gave graciously and generously, but he didn't receive it well. Mark loved playing the bad cop. He loved to antagonize. He loved to stir the pot. He always wanted to get something going. A little fight in hockey, he kind of loved those, especially midgets. A little fight in a bar wouldn't bother him a whole awful lot, getting that going. Especially when he had me and, well, Dirk, who's out there, and a couple other guys to help him settle it down later. Probably Warren and Dal as well at times. He loved it. He loved antagonizing things and getting things going. Once he was married to Nancy, he had to be a little more clandestine about it. Or he'd get his chain yanked a little bit quicker and called out to settle down. Whether at school or on the playground, at the camp or at hockey rink, no one really ever picked on his little brother or his little sister when we were younger. He was always there to protect us and help us. The same fierce loyalty kept him fired up to work every day and do everything he could for McCain. He loved the company. what he did and the people he worked with. He was very proud to be from New Brunswick, working for a New Brunswick company that showed great things can come from small places. I'd like to say thank you to Dad and Mom for all the love they gave Mark and instilling a great giving or never give up spirit in him. I'd like to thank Marilyn for her kindness, thoughtfulness, and positivity. Brendan and Lindsay, I'm sorry you lost your dad so early in your lives. He was tremendously proud of both of you, and he loved you both deeply and relished in all your achievements. To Nancy, I'm very, very sorry. I'm sure you have volumes of stories, but it should have been, and I know Mark had enough plans to keep writing volumes forever. Kim, Warren, Bailey, Kieran, Anne, Torrin, and I, we'll just have to miss forever.
I think I have a nose print on my glasses now, Neil. We are here today to celebrate Mark's full life. And though we are all sad, each of us know Mark wouldn't put up with us moping around. He'd tell us to get on with life and maybe use some colorful language. Mark was a son, father, brother, uncle, and a husband. And like everything in life, he approached those roles with 110% effort. He wanted to be the best at these roles because Mark only knew how to give 100% at everything he did. He was truly remarkable. As a son, Mark believed his upbringing was ideal. He stated this often and emulated this in his parenting approach. Dad, you and Mom were his team that kept him going through thick and thin. You holding down the home front with Neil and I at home, and Mom away with Mark. Mom reminding Mark that there was no quitting. Her goal was to get Mark through whatever obstacle presented. If you want to know who our mother was, have a look at Mark. She was strong, determined, motivated, and never accepted no for an answer. Sound familiar? They were both true forces of nature. Dad, his true admiration for you as a father can be best explained by this. After one of your and Mark's notorious dinner conversations where you and Mark would set the world straight, and Marilyn, I'm sure you can testify to this, having fed us and cared for us so often, from Mark's lips, Dad's words would be heard, a true form of admiration and a respect. As a father and a husband, Mark hit it out at the ballpark. There were those important family trips, whether it was spring canoeing or cruising the highways of western U.S. in a convertible. It was important to Mark and Nancy to impart their wonderful zest for life in their children. Looking at our niece and nephew today, I said that was a fait accompli. You both will always have these wonderful memories and life lessons to guide you forward.
Nancy, we have Mark to thank for bringing you into our lives. From the first time he brought you to meet Neil and myself at our apartment in Montreal, you and your beautiful cape, we knew who Mark's heart belonged to. It was you. There's no question about it. You two have shared so many fantastic adventures together, skiing in France on your honeymoon, biking each other into the ground in Vermont. You won. Traveling all over the world, entertaining in your home, and sharing all your culinary expertise. Nancy, you were his light, never giving up, always finding the positive, and we know how difficult that was of late. Nancy, you love Mark well. Thank you very much. And yes, like you said to Mark this past week, it's been a great ride, no regrets. How many of us can say that?
Don't take it. As a big brother, he wasn't the largest physically, but he sure made up for it in his attitude. He was an instigator with that sheepish little grin on his face and always putting us up to things, inappropriate jokes at the dining room table. That was Mark that put us up to that, Dad. And he always, like everybody said, he always skied the furthest. he liked to keep things stirred up. Mark blazed the trail for us, and what a trail it was. He always set the example to live large, and if you weren't being the best you could be, he would let you know. I secretly think he had a clone made of himself to get everything done that he got done in a day. So we have come up with this list of Mark's excellent life lessons to give you a sense of our wonderful brother and friend. It is not exhaustive by any means, but it speaks to Mark's approach to life and his love of life. Oh, let me start. I can do the first. Number one, always drop an F-bomb. It gets everyone's attention and adds great flavor to any story. Number two, stand up for what you know and don't be afraid to show it. Just commit and tell everyone that you're right. Walk into the room, stir the pot, and watch and see what happens. Demand the best from those around you by leading by example, even if it means stretching the truth just a little. You're number 5.
Enjoy good food. There's always time for a good lunch. I think he's cooked the entire cookbook, 660 curries, the gateway to Indian cooking. I'm sure he has. Number 6, patience is not a virtue. Not in Mark's world anyway, that's for sure. Number 7, be passionate about what you do when living life and working. We all know that he lived that way. Number 8, never, ever, ever, ever quit, especially if you're on a bike ride with Nancy.
Number 9, never stop planning and always plan for the future. Nancy was just telling us that just 3 weeks ago, we told Nancy after they'd lost their cat, Otis, forgot. After they'd lost Otis, that that they need to get a new kitten to keep Cayenne company when they were traveling in the future. He was always positive and looking forward. Number 10, there's no such thing as one drink too many. Live hard and play hard. We all know examples of this, they're just too many to list. And never let them see you sweat. We were years ago, Ann and I were with Mark and Nancy out in California, and we decided to go to Joshua Tree National Park. And we were driving up through the mountains in California, and we'd been a couple of minutes late leaving. So I think we were squealing out of the garage as Ann and the car door was finally closing. We get through California, we're racing through the mountains as Mark liked to drive. And we're coming across, and came across a hip in the mountain, and we're starting down, and there's a scenic viewpoint just in front of us, and a 90-degree turn. Mark's hit the brakes hard. We skid into the thing like something out of Hawaii Five-0. Mark steps out of the car, does a quick look around. Oh, that's a nice view, and gets back into it, as if he planned to stop in that parking lot.
Oh, dear. So when you leave here today, the way you honor Mark is by deciding to take each day and live it to its fullest. Think of Mark often as you go through the day and celebrate life the way we all know Mark did. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ray. Nancy had asked me to do this song. It's an old Eagles song, and from what I understand, it was one of Mark's favorites, and he loved to play the song. Before every exam, he wrote it down for good luck. So. Desperado, why don't you come to your senses? Been out riding fences for so long now. You're a hard one, well, I know you've got your reasons. These things that are pleasing you can hurt you somehow. Draw the queen of diamonds, boy. She'll beat you if she's able. The queen of hearts is always your best bet. It seems to me some fine things have been laid upon your table, but you only want the ones that you can't get. Desperado. In your hunger, they're driving you home. Freedom, oh freedom, it's just some people talking. Your prison is walking through this world all alone. Don't your feet get cold in the wintertime? The sky won't snow and the sun won't shine. It's hard to tell the nighttime from the day. You're losing all your highs and lows. It's funny how the feeling goes away. Desperado, why don't you come to your senses? Come down from your fences, open the gate. It may be raining, but there's a rainbow above you. Better let somebody love you. Let somebody love you. Let somebody love you before it's too late.
Where's Peter when I need him? I don't know if I gotta. Just pull up. Okay. There you go. I had to laugh at the comment that F-bombs and one more drink. There's a lot of truth behind that. Fair enough. My name is Rod McDonald, and I was a workmate of Mark's and a good friend. We lived across the street from each other. Mark McCauley, he was quite a boy. There's lots of words I could use to describe Mark, but before everybody jumps to a conclusion, I would describe him as a wonderful friend who I'll miss dearly. I first met Mark at a hockey game in Montreal during the time Sue and I were living in Toronto. Mark and Nancy were in Montreal, and I went with a bunch of friends that actually Mark went to university with. Went to the game that night, and the next morning we had breakfast at Mark and Nancy's house, and who would know, a couple years later, we'd moved to Florenceville across the street from them. Sue and I moved to Florenceville in 1997, and right from the start, the four of us got along great. Our kids grew up together, and Nancy and Sue were the best of friends. We shared many great times together, celebrating Christmas Eves, sleigh rides, birthdays, an abundance of Friday and Saturday nights with amazing food and an oversupply of wine as well. We traveled together on various trips, including the Prides and the Brewskis. Wonderful memories for us all, which will last a lifetime, with lots of good stories and laughs to share. My best memories of Mark was when we were on the Canadian management team together, during the time he spent as Vice President of Marketing for McCauley Canada. Since marketing was based in Florenceville during that period of time, we all get to see what went on within that department firsthand. Mark had a great talent for interviewing potential candidates. He often reached for talent from within the manufacturing group, where it was well known the brightest and best got their start with McCain. Mark, in one of his interviews, took the candidate to task by asking all kinds of questions surrounding worldly events. The questions were all over the place, from who was the Prime Minister of New Zealand, population of Brazil, to various questions surrounding political parties which were in power in different parts of the world. When Mark had done interrogating the individual, he asked for feedback. The candidate was quick to tell Mark that while he didn't know any of the answers to those various worldly affairs, if he needed to learn such in the role of marketing to sell cream pies and frozen desserts for the Canadian retail market, that he'd do that. Mark felt that was a fair response and promptly gave him a huge vote of confidence by saying, "You'll do, you're hired." Now, Mark was known for being on top of things and kept his team within marketing on task as well. It was always funny to hear Mark open the door and yelling, "Kenny, get your ass in here." With Ken knowing full well he'd be getting a grilling on why sales volumes and margins were off, while trailers were late to be unloaded, and the like. So not to leave any of the other product managers hanging, he would yell at the next person saying, "Stark, you're next." While at times seemed blustering, Mark loved his team, and his constant grilling and coaching always ensured they knew the business and nothing would be left uncovered. As you can no doubt tell, and Mark was very competitive. We heard that from Neil earlier. He always wanted to win, regardless of whether it was at work or at play. On the ice during interplaying hockey, the last thing you'd want to do was turn your back on Mark, as he would likely stick you when the ref wasn't looking, and he was always looking for new recruits so he could play on his team to improve. Even skiing, he was aggressive. Once we had meetings out west, and we went skiing. After a long day of skiing, he and Jeff Vasey decided that they would have a race from the top of Lake Louise down to the bottom of the hill without stopping. The rest of us went inside and had a beer and waited to see who would come in bragging. Now, while Mark was a great skier, Jeff Vasey is almost a professional skier. He was even better than Rick Prider and myself. In any case, Mark and Jeff came into the lounge following the race, both sweating like crazy, and flopped into the chairs beside each other. Jeff and Mark both said that had to be the dumbest thing they'd done quite some time, laughing the whole time. We never did find out who won the race. Now, Mark was known to be quite a world traveler at work. One time, we were at the Manoir Richelieu in Quebec for off-site meetings a few years back with the management team and their spouses. We all went out for dinner at a nice restaurant. Like good McCain folks, the bar bill was far greater than the food bill. That was a norm for back then. In any case, following the dinner, we all departed for our rooms. Mark and Nancy were in the elevator. For some reason, the elevator wasn't quite working. So Mark starts fiddling with the controls, and Nancy said, "For God's sakes, Mark, just push button number 3. To which Mark responded, "Nancy, you just don't know how much I travel." With Nancy stating, "Yeah, Mark, I think I do." So Nancy gets off at the 3rd floor while Mark stays on the elevator. About a half an hour later, Mark shows up, and Nancy says, "Where the heck have you been?" Well, Mark explained that he went back down to the kitchen to see the staff just to make sure that they get looked after and were tipped properly. Likely story. Anyway, the following morning, Nancy fills us in on the story, and we all had a pretty good laugh. I've never seen Steve McCain laugh so hard. It's been a standing joke for us to point out to Nancy that she just doesn't know how often I travel. On that note, there's another trip I recall quite well. The management team, I think we were on a flight from Fredericton to Toronto, and that was the same week that Mark had shaved his head for helping the cure for cancer. And Mark did not have a pretty head. He was just plain ugly when he had his head shaved. Now myself, I had 8 stitches down from my nose to my lip that Rick Pride had stuck me earlier that week in a hockey game. So I had the stitches down here. Arnold Parker, president at the time, he just got new teeth and he looked like a wounded beaver at best. His teeth are all hanging out and it was terrible. Bill Adams was on the flight, and Bill had those $2 reading glasses, and the arm broke off, and he had a big piece of tape hanging onto those. And Rick Bride, our VP of Finance, he was a terrible flyer, nervous as hell. He was just jerking back and forth every time the plane went, and kept hollering, "Give me a drink," to the stewardess. And anyway, Mark was sitting across the aisle from me, and he was kind of laughing a little bit, and he leans over and says, "If anybody asks, we all work for Cavendish." That's a true story. In total, Mark had a 32-year career with McCain, and in these days, staying with the company for that long is becoming quite rare. I know Mark loved working for McCain from the time he spent in sales to his marketing role to his promotion of VP of Marketing, then on to global roles of corporate strategy, value engineering, and to his latest role of portfolio optimization. Mark always took the time to understand the business landscapes of the countries he traveled to, and as well always did a thorough review of how the company was performing in those various regions. His experience and understanding of the history of the company, knowing the McCain family members personally, always put Mark in a great position to offer advice and recommendations as to how the company could improve. Mark's main strategy was always rooted in the spirit of kill the competition. Wherever he was in the world, Mark always prided himself in being from Florenceville, supporting the notion that one didn't need to be based in Toronto or Chicago to be effective or productive. He was always happy to get home, enjoying time with family and friends, and sharing stories of his travel and escapades in support of McCain. While McCain has lost a great man in Mark, we have lost more in being such a great friend who we miss dearly. Given Mark love of music, from the words of Neil Young, long may you run, Mark, long may you run.
So my name is Bailey, and I'm Kim and Warren's daughter. So I read this poem last week. I was at my Grandpa Kent's house. It's written by Emma Bomback, and I read it and instantly thought of Mark. So when I stand before God at the end of my life, I would hope that I would not have a single bit of talent left, and I could say I used everything you gave me. And I think that's what Mark did. He lived every single day to the fullest, to the very end.
So this is Catherine Brennan. I'm Peter McLaughlin. And Catherine is going to sing a song that many of you may have heard here. It was at Second Wind. It was written by the late, great Nova Scotian songwriter Laura Smith. And she wrote it when her older brother had passed. And it's called Safe Home, Sweet Light.
shining here on wings, safe and sound, are you carried? No longer casting shadows, no longer counting days. You are loved, and you are loved always. Safe home, sweetheart, no longer beating here. For your life is but a whisper to my sorrow. But time does not confine you now. My spirits I must raise. You are loved, and you are loved always. You are loved. You are loved. You are loved always. Safe home, sweet light, no longer shining here. Though your joy is now a beacon for the weary, never more to shed a tear, never more to feel alone. You are loved, and you are loved. Your home. You are loved, and you are loved. Your
And now we're joined, what's your name again? Jamie Hunter. And this was a song recorded by the Rankin family. It was written by Leon Dubinsky from Cape Breton. And it's Heather Rankin did it for us at the Carleton Victoria Arts Council, and it was just another of the many concerts that Mark and Nancy attended and enjoyed. And this is called Rise Again.
When the waves roll on over again in the waves out on the ocean. And then we rise again. When the light goes dark with the forces of creation across a stormy sky, we look to reincarnation to explain our lives, as if a child could tell us why, that as sure as the sunrise, sure as the sea, as sure as the wind in the trees, we rise again in the faces of our children. We rise again in the voices of our song. We rise again in the waves out on the ocean. And then we rise again. We rise again in the faces of our children. We rise again in the voices of our song. We rise again in the waves out on the ocean. And then we rise again. And then we rise again.
Hello, we are Mark and Nancy's children, Brendan and Lindsay. So when I go to my happy place, Dad is always there. One of my happy places is from my childhood. It is Saturday morning. Dad has coaxed me to fetch the newspaper from the top of the driveway. Still in my pajamas, I run to the mailbox, and Dad greets me back at the door. "Thanks, doofus," he says. "You're welcome, doo-doo." Dad spends the morning working diligently on the newspaper crossword. His cat mug is beside him. Mom is making blueberry waffles, which Brendan and I are plowing through batch after batch, occasionally sparing one for Mom or Dad. Another happy place is at Lac des Neiges. Dad has just arrived at the cottage after driving from Florenceville. We all know he has arrived because we hear his car blasting Hell's Bells by AC/DC as he drives around the lake on the cottage road. The whole family comes outside to greet him. Later that night, we all head down towards the water for a night swim to cool off before bed. Dad backs the car towards the lake and opens the trunk so we can all hear Night Swimming by REM play on the car speakers. Dad does a swan dive from the top deck. We swim and laugh around the glow of tea-light candles floating in the water. Every time I visit these happy places, I feel his love, encouragement, safety, generosity, courage, and passion to live every day to the fullest. Dad will always be my happy place.
I'd like to share a poem that resonates with Dad's love of the great outdoors. Do not stand by my grave and weep. I am not there. I do not sleep. I'm the thousand winds that blow. I am the diamond glints in snow. I am the sunlight on ripened green. I am the gentle autumn rain. As you awake with morning's hush, I am the swift, upflinging rush of quiet birds in circling flight. I am the day transcending night. Do not stand by my grave and cry. I am not there. I did not die.
So, folks, we'd like to wrap up the celebration of Mark with another one of his favorite songs by fellow Irishman Van Morrison. You are welcome to stay after the service to visit with Mark's family, who thank you so much for joining us all today.
We were born before the wind, ourselves younger than the sun, and the mighty boat was one as we sailed into the mystic. Hark not hear the sailors cry, smell the sea, see the sky. Let your soul and spirit fly into the mystic. When that foghorn blows, I will be coming home. When that foghorn blows, I want to hear it. I don't have to fear it. And I want to rock your gypsy soul. Way back in the days of old, together we'll float into the mystic. When that foghorn blows, you know I'll be coming home. When that foghorn whistle blows, I gotta hear it. I just have to fear it. And I wanna rock your gypsy soul, just like way back in days of old. Together we'll float into the mystic. Together we will float into the mystic. Together we will flow into the mystic.